few weeks ago, I was at the record show when I ran into Frank, or as you might know him, Mr.Stickermania. You might know his YouTube channel, which is becoming increasingly popular, or his eBay store where he has sold thousands of collectible items to people for years. Frank is also becoming one of the go-to guys to have a butcher cover peeled. He is, in fact, an expert at this task. Frank is a record collector, Beatle expert, fellow Louisvillian, and friend. The show, he brought a metal case of incredibly rare, clean, and quite frankly, insane records with him, possibly to sell or to show people. Typical artists and titles that we all know from the Beatles, Zeppelin, Floyd, but we're talking about the ultra premium here. The Stones, super clean, hype stickers, the best and most rare pressings. We watch each other's channels, and Frank knows that for a long time I have been looking for a HÖRZU Magical Mystery Tour. My buddy John was checking out some records, and Frank graciously had John send over this Magical Mystery Tour. It's a German Apple-released pressing, essentially a HÖRZU in every way. True stereo, confirmed, yes, and it sounds really, really great. When you put it on, immediately you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this definitely sounds different than my old US Capitol pressings. The first thing I noticed was the vocal on the old Capitol pressings is super loud and the music is kind of muted. And the stereo is that kind of rechanneled fake thing going on. This is much more balanced, clear, and true stereo. And it's not until you start putting on one of these, like a rainbow or even the OG Capitol, that you start to realize that the German pressing, the true stereo German pressing, is leaps and bounds above those. It's a totally different ball game. There's more bass, there's more clarity. The soundstage so much bigger and wider and far more articulate. The songs on this pressing are absolutely incredible sounding. In particular, the little kind of jams or incidental music at the end of some of the songs, super vibey. The Fool on the Hill just absolutely sounds breathtaking. Strawberry Fields Forever. John listened to this while he had it in his possession, and he said he fell out of his chair when he heard that song. Baby, I'm a Rich Man. There's some guitar parts at the end that just sound absolutely realistic and just popping out of the mix. The Walrus is on here. It does suffer a little bit from being at the end, but overall, absolutely iconic. I know this is a cliche thing to say, but you're hearing things that you've never heard before. Things like the tape loops on Full on the Hill and the big, huge bass sound on Baby I'm a Rich Man just don't really come across on the US versions of this record. Now, this probably has the worst of the Magical Mystery Tour covers. The UK probably being the best one, but it's all about what's on the disc here. Mine has that typical Apple label. Absolutely flabbergasted to have this record. A few weeks back, the legend that is known as Matt sent over a top loader white album, which was a permanent addition to the collection. Frank has now sent over this Magical Mystery Tour, which will also hold a permanent spot in my collection. It is not going anywhere. And if a time ever comes where the collection is going somewhere, these will go back to where they came from. That said, beautiful record. I first heard Mazzy kind of wax poetic on the HÖRZU, and he kind of hit me to the fact that I might need one of these.
Were only a few songs that were on an EP in the United Kingdom. In America, we had actually a full album, which I would argue is probably the Beatles' best psychedelic record.
Great record.
Even more than Pepper. But the one I'm going to say, and this is again an education for Michael and Dusseldorf, we're going back to the Horzu label. And he laughs at it because apparently Horzu is like a friggin' department store chain in Germany.
No, Messi. No, sorry.
Oh,
HÖRZU is
a
HÖRZU
magazine.
is a German television magazine. Every huge one. Every German household bought HÖRZU. Then you have the program. We had 3 programs, and we looked in the HÖRZU. What do we watch today? And every once in a while, HÖRZU put out a record or a toaster or a jacket, and those records were pressed in millions, and those were the cheapest records you could buy.
The more you look into it, the more you start to realize that it is something that you need to have. That said, if you need one, definitely keep your eyes on Frank, Mr.Stickermania's eBay page, or contact him on YouTube. He has this kind of stuff all the time and much more. I recently saw a butcher that he peeled, and that was the first time I'd held an expertly peeled butcher in my hands. I never realized the texture on the cover and the just absolutely beautiful. All the glue was off of it. Normally when you see those butchers, they're torn up, there's peel-offs, and the disc for that thing was so clean I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I digress. If you've been listening to an old Capitol Magical Mystery Tour for years, this is definitely worth the price of admission. And, you know, it seems a little bright, maybe. We're all used to these modern audiophile records and stuff. And I was thinking, well, it's a little bright. There is a DMM version of this record that's highly spoken of. It's like a -C, I believe. But as soon as you start comparing it to one of these, you start realizing, oh, this is a totally different ballgame. This is easily the best pressing of Magical Mystery Tour that I've heard. If it's not true stereo, you don't want it.
I knows I have it. So. Woo! That's so original slick right here. Peeled by Mr.Stickermania. Yeah. Excellent job. My Lord.